When I was a kid, getting your hands on marijuana was really, really difficult. Now you can get it all the time. Right, we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between smoking marijuana, drinking booze, and how it affects your children.
Hi, welcome back to the Art of Fatherhood. I'm Brian LaFauci.
And I'm Patrick Marino.
All right, today we're getting drunk and high.
Nice. It's my favorite way of doing it. We're both parents, right? And I know that this is a conversation we had before the conversation that we're having on camera. And my kids are kind of aging out of being teenagers, although I have a 9-year-old who's going to be a teenager at some point. And I think that, one thing I've noticed, right, the observation is that it doesn't seem like the teenagers are getting drunk as often, right? It doesn't seem like that is as much of a thing. It seems like they've kind of switched, a lot of them. It doesn't mean they're not drinking anymore, but I feel like they've kind of switched to getting vapes, gummies, smoking weed, and smoking nicotine versus what we did, which was everybody was drinking. Like, it was hard. Not that people weren't smoking marijuana, but it was just harder to get your hands on it.
Well, it was illegal
right,
at
exactly.
the time,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and granted, you could say that for kids, drinking alcohol is illegal too,
right?
But it was readily available in stores everywhere, so
you could either if you looked old enough, you could buy it yourself, or you could find someone to buy it for you, or you could just take it from your parents, right? Because your parents had alcohol.
So one of the things you can say about that is, as you got, like, your parents would have booze in the house when we were kids. Right. If they had marijuana in the house, you didn't know about it, or most kids didn't know about it.
I mean, like, I know kids who had. I know people who are now adults,
right? Who,
when they were growing up, they had stoner parents,
and it wasn't in the weed cabinet. Let's put it that way.
Right,
Oh, there's the liquor cabinet. There's the weed cabinet.
Yeah, I mean, weed was still federally against the law, but it wasn't. They were prosecuting.
Right,
it's a big deal if you get caught with that.
Now, you go into people's homes. It's legal.
Right.
There's the weed cabinet. And the gummies are in the fridge.
And I can remember having the conversation with my ex-wife, especially during the early periods where it was maybe not quite legal in Massachusetts, but it was legal, and it was recreational legal, and all these kind of, when it was like, well, why are we so worried about seeing our kids seeing us smoking or having a gummy?
Yeah.
Because we're not worried about them seeing us drink.
Right.
They're both legal.
Right.
Why are we so worried about it?
Well, I mean, we ingrained, right? So we've had it ingrained into our heads. When you grow up with something that is viewed in the same light and prosecuted in the same light as
heroin.
Like people,
crack cocaine.
Yeah, you sell cocaine, you sell marijuana, you can go to jail for both at a certain amount, right? So you grow up with that. It takes time to just get used to what it is now. But now our kids have grown up with this, so they're seeing it in a much different light than we experienced it. And now in the kid party, right? So now the 16-year-old, 17-year-old who's going to a party, the ready availability of marijuana and its socially accepted new kind of setup and booze are both there. And like the title of this video is,
pick your freaking poison.
Yeah, pick your poison. And this is now a pendulum, like everything is. And we are dealing with a pendulum swing. And as a parent, one of my big concerns is, we all know, veteran, right? I have a lot of friends that were able to come off of serious narcotics through just smoking a joint every day from wartime injuries or PTSD, and they were on a bunch of medicine, and now they're not. And now they smoke 2 joints every day, and it replaced hard drugs that were fucking horrific for them. So what does that mean? Well, now we're seeing in society people saying weed's great for you. Cures your anxiety, right? So
I
now
think a lot of it's based on the alternative, though. So the alternative is hard narcotics, right? And it's oh shit, this is way better. Or for those of us who know people who struggled with alcohol,
yes,
the violence,
yeah,
the car accidents,
yes,
all the bad things that we associate with heavy drinking and alcoholism. We don't somebody's high, it's they're happier.
Oh,
they
yeah.
eat a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, that's how you feel. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, that's in my head. Like, that's
Yeah.
what it is. Right. Like I would way rather the person who I know who is struggling with alcohol be high.
Yeah, the demeanor is much
Yeah, it's
different.
just a way different thing. Like, there's no violence. There's, like I said, I mean, you don't want people who are high getting into a car, but you feel a little bit better about it. Like, I mean, like, it's like,
It's viewed very
that's
differently.
the way I view it.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
viewed very differently. But what's
And
interesting...
thank God, my kids, if they're teenagers and they're getting into stuff, thank God they're not binge drinking getting in the car.
I
Right?
think it
It's
makes
like,
us feel a little better.
that's how we feel.
Right.
But like, maybe, we don't know. Right.
Well, let's look. Now we take a step back. So now our kids are hearing this message of, well, I hear the message all the time how marijuana is helping people. Nobody heard that message with booze, ever.
Yeah.
There was never, it's not like when we were growing up, people were like, guess what? Great new thing. Just drink a fifth of vodka every day and you can get off your narcotics for PTSD or for the pain that you were experiencing from wartime. Like,
Right.
no one heard that.
Right.
They are hearing this from marijuana. So what do you do when you are, even any human, child, adult, we assimilate the message that fits really well with us. We like that message. So what am I going to do? I'm going to gobble up those sound bites as a kid of people telling me that marijuana is good for me. It has beneficial effects. So now let's look at what you talked about earlier. And the concern there is, wait, put the brakes on, because maybe for adults, yes. Maybe for individuals that are dealing with other issues, and this is a better alternative, yes. But for a young developing brain, are either of them a benefit?
Well, I think that the, like you said, it's the pendulum, but it's also with the pendulum. Like, we have, 100 and something years of legal alcohol. Like, we know what the restrictions are. We know people get in the car accidents. Like, we know all this stuff about alcohol because it's been readily available. You can go into a store and buy it.
Yep.
We don't have as much time. We have basically none. We have 5 years, 10 years if you're in Colorado or whatever. Like, we don't have as much, we don't have data on legal weed, right? And the access that kids have to it. And I think that, I know I struggle with it. Sometimes I'm like, I really feel like I'd rather them do that. But
Then drink.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're going to do something.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to do something because they're going to be rebelling and they're going to do something that's illegal. I mean, and whatever, right? We all had our moments.
Right.
But for this, it's like, we know way more about developing brains. We know way more about how there can be issues with that. There's stuff coming out about, people who have some sort of psychotic tendency that's kind of buried, especially if they have an issue with their brain and they smoke weed and they go to some really dark places, right? That ends up being a real detriment. And you can get addicted to it, whether you're addicted to it in the same way you are addicted to heroin or an opiate or something like that. It's different, but you can certainly get addicted to that feeling, and you can get addicted to, because I lived with younger people who were high all the time, and it did affected their lives in not a good way. Like, they were not productive people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are certainly not.
It's very much a person by person thing.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. And the one thing about it where it can get what you would consider to be abused, right? What you would call it as abused is it can get abused by, you now have this thing. Let's relate it to alcohol. Let me back up a little bit. If I came home or had a tough moment, right? And I grab a drink, it's going to take that drink probably about 30 minutes, 45 minutes to elicit the thing I want it to elicit for why I thought I picked it up. That was a stressful day. I'm going to have a glass of scotch, right? Great. I drink the scotch, blah, blah, blah. About 45 minutes later, 30 minutes later, I'm like, haha, there it is, right? There's that little buzz I was looking for to come down for my day. Take the same concept. I'm having a stressful situation. I'm going to take a whack of my pen, right? Take a little whack of my weed pen, and within a minute, I'm there.
Right.
There it is. There's the relief. So the abuse, as we want to call it, can come in a sense where if we're using it as a coping strategy at times where we just need to learn how to fucking cope,
Right.
because that's life, it's really easy to do that because of how quick it can get us there.
Yeah.
You know, how quick it can get us there and do that for us.
And you're a man of a certain size. Now imagine your 30-year-old younger self
Yeah.
who's a different size
Yeah.
trying to do the same thing.
Right.
Because I think there is a correlation, right, between the size, your size, certain parts of your size that are correlated with how well you can handle some of this.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's
Stuff.
got different
Right,
tolerance.
exactly.
And,
Yeah.
and, you know, and so kids are going to process it very differently. And I would say my personal fear, which might be different than yours, my personal fear is the messaging that's coming out right now is misleading.
Right.
Because one, the federal government has marijuana coded as like a category whatever drug that doesn't allow them to do proper testing and research on it.
Right.
Which is, first off, that's a shit show in itself.
Right.
Completely ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? Because the benefit that could be there, this is because of the legality of it hasn't come around yet. So now we're losing out on really what could be beneficial research and really trying to dig into like how to use this effectively.
Yeah, exactly.
Or
How about just like, we've had the edible conversation plenty of times. It's like, if I've had too much edibles, like, don't freaking put something in my hand and expect me to hold it.
Right.
Like, don't expect that from me.
Right.
But like, we don't know what the amounts are.
Right.
We think we know what the amounts
Yeah.
are in these edibles. We kind of have an idea of some of the mixtures of THC and CBD and whatever it is and how it affects. But we have it's not studied enough to
Right.
to know.
And if you think your kids are going to manage that effectively
Yeah.
at a young age,
Yeah, because I can't manage it.
right. Absolutely not. And so, as we look at the benefits of these two things, my stance on this, and we're all going to differ as parents, but my stance on this and what I think is really important is, despite the fact that there are clear benefits out there to the use of marijuana as opposed to maybe alcohol in their effects, there's detrimental effects on both ends.
Right.
And we can't ignore the biggest elephant in the room, in that when we're talking about a kid and we're talking about their brain develop, and not just their brain, their neurological system is developing.
Right.
It goes beyond just the brain, right? So the neurological system is developing, and now we're going to introduce
Psychedelic
a substance
substance.
that has varying levels of potency, which are somewhat we have some knowledge on,
And somewhat
but
regulated.
Yeah,
Like-
and somewhat regulated on a state level, not a
Well, also just like because it's not federally, like, again, you talked about the
Right.
science, like we're not looking into the individual products as
Yeah.
well as we do alcohol products,
Yeah.
for example.
If I was talking to a grown adult with the finished developing, right, capable of having some sort of impulse control and all that, I would lean towards, I'd probably rather see you smoke marijuana than drink alcohol.
Right.
Right
Yep.
now,
Yeah.
that would be my stance.
Yeah.
I feel that
But you probably shouldn't say that.
So I think I need to say that.
Right.
And I try to have these very open conversations with my kids because I try not to be hypocritical. I try to just say, this is the reality where we live in. But I do go back to the stuff you're talking about and saying, listen, there's a reason why it's illegal at your age right now. And we know, at least fairly well, what the detriment of alcohol can have on a developing brain. We don't really know what the long-term detriment marijuana and especially some of the THC contents of some of the stuff produced out there right now is through the roof.
Well, it's because it's scientifically engineered. Like
It's
when we were
through
kids,
the
if you
roof.
got your hands on it, it was grown by somebody in their backyard, and or it was mixed with stuff because they
Yes.
were trying to sell it. I mean, we're just in a totally different world. It's way stronger. It's
Yep.
way more potent, and we don't know the effects.
Right.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's imparting on them that while we think long term, later in life, this might be the better two options, right? As a young kid, we do not know anything about now that it's more readily available to our youth more than any other time in history.
Our kids are this is the experimental age.
It's funny.
We're in the
our kids
fishbowl.
can get everything, by the way.
Oh yeah,
like,
of course.
We used to struggle to get porn. They can get porn by clicking a button.
Yeah, and that's a big problem too.
Yeah,
huge problem.
Yeah, they're smoking weed, watching porn, and it's all going to shit. But at the end of the day, like,
they're not getting in the car shit faced. Like what's the worst thing you can think of? Your kid goes out and it's like, geez,
drives too slow.
I hope they freaking exactly.
Speed up,
see, these
Johnny,
are terrible. We should never have this conversation.
Speed up,
like,
Johnny,
geez,
speed up.
Oh, my kid's smiling all the time and sitting in his bed.
Yeah, he's always happy and driving responsibly.
Getting shit-faced and getting in the car and wrecking people.
Went sideways,
but it is like I mean, like that's the dilemma. Like that's why this is like kind of like not even really like. You're not saying what you said to everybody. No. You're not saying like, I hope your kids smoke weed instead of drink alcohol.
Of course not.
What you're saying is secretly in your head, that's kind of how you feel. And sometimes you say it to your kids.
Try, as parents.
Because I know I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I hope he doesn't get heavily into drinking. And maybe if he's going to do something, it's maybe a little bit of marijuana and the gummy here or there versus... getting addicted, not just addicted to alcohol, but getting, like I said, the car wrecks, the violence, all the things that we associate with it.
And as we're kind of wrapping this up, I think to summarize like what I think is a good takeaway to this, it really comes down to, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we have real conversations with our kids. The whole Nancy Reagan don't do drugs is that approach to anything. I feel nowadays with the access our kids have to information is a waste of your time as a parent. You have to have real conversations. And sometimes that means at a certain age, we're exposing them to something that maybe this is gonna be tough to talk about. But if we talk about it in a way where we're just not being realistic with what is going on, we lose them, right? And we lose them. And so I know we're joking but really, these jokes are like how we're trying to process this in the back of our mind.
And we should all be having these conversations. I don't think any parent should say what we said out loud, which is, I hope my kid smokes weed instead of drinking.
No,
it should be more like we need to we have to educate our children. We have to let them know, like, here's a reason why, here's the age, right? Like, what's the prefrontal
prefrontal cortex is not
that thing
fully
doesn't develop until like 25. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like anything you do between then can fuck you up seriously.
Absolutely.
So it's like we need to just be aware of that.
Yeah.
And like, we have to have the conversation. And like, we have to give our kids the information, I think. Have an open conversation. Like, here's why.
And my message to my kids is, listen, it's not legal right now. There's a reason it's not legal for you right now. So we're not just going to we're not going to go down the slippery slope of me saying it's okay. That's just my stance with it. Yeah. Right. But if they ask me, well, what do you think about the difference? I'll tell them. And in this house, we're not going to drink until we can drink. And in this house, we're not going to smoke marijuana until we can smoke marijuana legally. And then at that age, hopefully you'll decide whatever is best for you. And whatever it is, it'll be a responsible amount of either one. And we'll go from there.
And introduce other things like other things that can give you the same effects.
We'll
working
talk about
out.
Math. Oh, no. You're not talking
about
math.
I was talking about math. No, I was talking about the fact that you can get really good
math, kids. Don't
benefits
do math.
from working out or like yoga or like some of the other things that can give you.
That's what I was going to say, not math, yoga.
They can give you the benefits, like some of those endorphin things that you get from, you can replace that. There's a lot of kids, a lot of younger adults right now who will just flat out say that they don't smoke, they don't drink at all, right? And that's new to me. Like that's new. Like, I mean, like there was when I was 21, I don't know if I knew anybody who didn't drink.
There are more kids not drinking, which I think is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that the key takeaway is just stay open, honest conversations.
Yep.
But stay informed. Like, stay informed.
Yeah,
I think it's more
parents,
important.
We need
it's
to
more
follow
important not just to be Nancy Reagan and say no to drugs. It's more important to stay informed because this shit is coming and changing. Right? Fast. It's like the research is coming. Like we just looked at the study this year.
Yep.
Right? A 2023 study.
Yep.
Right. About the increase.
Columbia, right? Columbia.
Yeah, here's Columbia. Increase in psychiatric issues for kids who smoke weed regularly.
Yep.
Teenagers.
At a young age.
Yeah. Teenagers. You know what I mean? So it's like this stuff is just coming out. We didn't know this stuff before. Now we know it. Stay informed and keep up to date.
Great conversation. I'm Brian LaFauci.
Patrick Marino.
See you next time.
Thank you.